Chapter 3. Dodging the Depression Torpedo. Maintain enthusiasm in spite of the inevitable setbacks. Although this business is 90% fun after the learning curve months, the depression torpedo is among the more difficult challenges facing new and seasoned network marketers alike. Of necessity, successful recruiters must be enthusiastic, sincere, articulate, and believable. A depressed person cannot survive in this industry. Thus, we need to prepare our newest associates by warning them of the most common causes of depression, beginning with an open admission of our own personal struggles with this formidable adversary. As previously mentioned, one of our all-time best-selling sales tools is an audio tape entitled, "If MLM is so great, why am I depressed?" There are probably several reasons for its popularity. Obviously, it's one of those titles that grabs people, and the content was quite humorous as we presented anecdotes from our first years in the business. But the primary reason it was so well received is because everyone can relate to it. In this chapter, we will discuss depression using the image of the depression torpedo, so named because it seems to come out of nowhere, and after it hits, can sink a person rapidly. One prerequisite for success in network marketing, often not as critical in traditional business, is the appearance of being emotionally charged. Every weekday, millions of people climb into their cars in a state of semi-depression and fight traffic on their way to jobs and professions which, simply put, do not require emotional energy. Some people are computer experts who are involved in data entry. The computer doesn't care if they're depressed, and since their supervisor is often more despondent, there's no need to be overflowing with joy. In fact, we could probably list hundreds of examples of boring, routine jobs that require nothing more than one's semi-conscious attention. Remember the saying, "Oh, I can do this in my sleep." In the world of traditional business, that's not just a saying. Success in network marketing, however, depends on one factor perhaps more than any other, a positive, uplifting personality and demonstrable enthusiasm and exuberance. Network marketers cannot effectively convince people to change careers, or for that matter participate in a new part-time opportunity, unless they appear to enjoy what they're doing. Indeed, no one should ever go into the community or pick up the telephone for the purpose of recruiting prospects or selling services or products, unless he or she is in a positive frame of mind. Causes of MLM depression. When friends decline the offer to come to a distributor's home for a business presentation, or worse, stand us up after accepting the invitation, it's a bit depressing. Each time a valued associate goes AWOL by slipping into apathy, changing companies, or quitting MLM altogether, we can become depressed. The more we dwell on such things, the more depressed we become. And yet we all know that attrition is going to happen. Over time, attrition can account for as much as a 75% dropout rate as we move through the ups and downs of building our business. It is a fundamental reality in MLM, and one from which we will never be exempt. After years of experience and success in network marketing, Ron Wiggins has developed a philosophical attitude about attrition. The sooner someone quits who isn't serious about the business, the sooner he knows with whom he need not waste a lot of time. Unless people are blatantly doing everything wrong, Ron's advice is to let people do what they want to do with their business and not what you want them to do. There's a place for any and all levels of participation in this business. He's right. Since we know that attrition is the wrong thing on which to concentrate, we need to focus on the positive numbers instead. The more people we have active in our business, the more successful we will be. A well-balanced organization will be made up of a large body of wholesale buyers, many retailing distributors, some part-time business builders, and a few full-time gung-ho recruiting maniacs. So, Ron concludes, work with the leaders and do whatever it takes to protect your mindset. You must stay focused for this business to work. We will discuss this point in more detail in Chapter 6, Fending Off the Scatterbomb. Whether you are prospecting and receiving a series of rejections, whether you are setting up appointments and getting no-shows, or whether you are recruiting and watching people drop like flies before they've even scheduled a personal training session. Remember, that's all inevitable. Nothing is wrong with you or your business. You are no different than the waitress offering people coffee in a coffee shop. Some people just don't care for any. You are merely sifting for those for whom the time is right. Depression results not from attrition or even rejection. Depression ensues from dwelling on those factors and taking them personally. Learn to be as philosophical as Ron Wiggins about the disappointments. All right, I just got 9 no's today. I'm that much closer to a yes. Or, thank God John quit before I invested any more time in him. Attrition happens. People lose their initial enthusiasm. Some people are not coachable, so move on and start working with the new people who are coming on board. And if you don't have any new enthusiastic associates, go find some. If you spend too much time trying to boost up people who don't want to be in this business, it will drag you down. And the deeper you sink, the more vulnerable you become to the depression torpedo. It is much more energizing to look for new people who are excited, interested, and willing to learn. When you're down, go upline. We have an age-old adage in our industry. If you are up, go down, and if you are down, go up. Each of us has upline leaders who are, theoretically, more experienced than we, and who have a vested interest in our success. We should turn to them when we are feeling concern, anxiety, or depression. Hence, when down, go up. David Dryden from Dallas, Texas, learned this lesson just in the nick of time. About 2 years ago, my wife Terry and I were looking for a way to bring her home from corporate America so that we could raise our kids instead of some daycare doing it for us. I decided to work harder and start my own business, but it wasn't working out. One day my wife came home after being prospected by a young man named Al Hewitt. After sitting in a meeting with my arms crossed and my mind closed, I gave her the okay to do the business, as if she needed my permission. Before I knew what was going on, we had products all over our home, and a house full of people curious to see what we were doing. Without realizing it, I was hooked on the business, that is, until I met my first and biggest adversary, no-shows of people whom we considered good friends, folks who had promised to come to our meeting. I was so discouraged I was ready to quit. But I had thankfully heard the adage, when we are down, go up. So I decided to call and introduce myself to my upline. I left messages for almost all of them, not fully convinced I'd receive any calls back. Then one day something happened to change my life. I had finally had it. Too many no-shows, too many no's, too many late nights without success happening as fast as I thought it should. I was going to take my wife to lunch. She was still working at that time, and tell her that this was her business, her idea, and that I would support her, but she was going to have to do it without my direct involvement. I was walking out the door when the telephone rang, and I almost let it go for the answering machine to pick up. Something told me to answer. On the line was a strangely familiar voice with this outrageous Texas twang, asking if David Dryden was in. The call was from Mark Yarnell, who was actually returning my call. We very casually discussed the business and the successes possible, but I never mentioned my immediate plans to quit. His last comments were focused on perseverance and how many people similar to me had hung in there and how successful they were now just because they didn't quit. Well, this obviously changed my plans for our lunch conversation, and it goes without saying that Terry and I are still working our way toward our goals. Thanks to upline support from Al Hewitt all the way up to Mark Yarnell, we now know that we will achieve our dreams. David added as a postscript that it took him nearly 2 years to figure out why he didn't quit back then. It was only while writing out this story from his heart late one night that he completely understood why he is still in this business, and how it changed from his wife's way out of the corporate world to their shared dream. We must always remember to return calls to our downline. A simple 5-minute conversation can often be the only thing necessary to protect them from vulnerability to the depression torpedo. Upline support can make or break a new networker's early months in this business. Vera Holub of San Diego, California, has relied heavily on her upline and, in turn, tried to emulate them in working with her downline. As she explains, "I grew up in the cotton fields of South Texas in a tin-roofed shack with no running water or electricity. I lost my only brother to suicide at age 33. I worked my way through junior college in a kitchen cabinet factory and finished my BS degree in dental hygiene. I achieved the American dream/nightmare by busting my chops, working with a bunch of neurotic dentists for $50,000 a year. Finally, I realized there had to be a better way. That day in 1988, when I saw Mark Yarnell's video explaining network marketing, I knew my prayers had been answered, and that I would do this business for the rest of my life. Quitting was never an option. Today, I have a life about which many people only dream, and I am able to take care of my aging mother, who was responsible for giving me the dream to rise above our early situation. I've taken some time to enjoy life and touch other people's lives while building my business. I am so grateful to Mark Yarnell and Kathy Dennison as my upline coaches, and for their having turned me on to this marvelous industry." Never convey a down attitude to your downline. The last thing we want to do is negatively impact our downline organization by taking our negativity down. Thus, when you are up emotionally, that's the best time to talk with your downline. This industry is so much fun that you may find yourself seldom negative. But don't ever share your negativity with anyone in your downline, or you could poison a huge percentage of your entire group. You see, it's quite devastating, especially to a new distributor, to discover that their leaders are down emotionally. If you have ever played the game of gossip as a child, you remember how, once in a circle with your friends, one individual would whisper a quick story to the person sitting next to her. Then, after being repeated by each person, it would reach the original storyteller, often distorted completely beyond recognition. If you've never played that game, let me assure you, by the time a simple story has gone through a mere 5 or 6 individuals, that story can become dramatically distorted. And that's just 5 retellings. In networking, a simple story can be told, on the telephone or in person, as many as 5,000 or 6,000 times over a period of a week or less. Can you even begin to imagine the distortions that inevitably occur? If not, here's a graphic example. Mark describes a situation that happened to him in his first 6 months. Even though my group was naturally smaller in this early stage, I discovered the dramatic impact that can occur by a leader talking to downline members when he is down himself. I was angry when a pro football player on my 3rd level decided to quit in his 2nd month of our business. It troubled me for 2 reasons. First, I had invested numerous hours in personally training him. After all, how often does a simple country boy from the Boston Mountains of northern Arkansas get a chance to coach an NFL star? Second, everyone knew him, and I was in ego heaven each time I told anyone, especially my close friends and family members back in Missouri, that I was spending quality time coaching my great friend and associate, Mr. NFL. So when he quit and took 5 of his best friends with him into the old USA Vitamin deal, I was depressed and angry. I made the mistake of mentioning to a new frontline leader what he'd done and why I was so angered by his actions. 2 weeks later, by the time I'd all but forgotten Mr. NFL, I received a disturbing message on my answering machine from a tearful downline member of another completely separate organization. This lady was not even in my own downline. I didn't know her, had not talked to her before, and have not spoken to her since this incident. She didn't tell me what was disturbing her, but merely suggested that I call her immediately so I could help her make an important decision. As best I can recall, and it's going to be reasonably accurate because it was such an emotionally charged 30-minute conversation, here's how the dialogue played out. Following the 2 minutes of ice-breaking small talk, she began her story in a depressed and, at one point, sobbing manner. "Mr. Yarnell, I can't blame you for leaving the company and bettering your finances, if that was your problem.
Your family deserves prosperity, especially considering the amount of effort you've put into network marketing. But what upsets me is that, from what your upline has told us, you were making a ton of money. It shakes my confidence that you would believe that, at your age, playing professional football in the NFL could be as lucrative and long-term as the passive residual income from this business. My husband thinks you're gutsy to go for it, but I can't for the life of me.
I cut her off. I was shocked, literally shocked beyond comprehension. What did you just say, Sally?
I said my husband thinks you're gutsy.
No, I interjected. Before that, something about joining the NFL? Are you kidding? I mean, I'm 36 years old and never even played college ball. There was dead silence, though I could hear her clear her throat. Then she softly asked,
You mean you didn't try out for the 49ers last month? You didn't really trade in MLM for NFL?
I must confess it was the most comical distortion of facts I'd ever heard. When I assured her of this impossibility, I could hear her let out an audible sigh. She was so relieved to find out that I was not getting out of the business. I'll run off any mountain or glacier in the world with a paraglider, the open parachute form of hang gliding, but that's a sissy sport compared to pro ball of any kind. If I were hit just once by a mediocre NFL tackle, I truly believe I'd be lucky to live through it. I'd tremble at the thought of being hit by a guy like Steve Bach, a former NFLer from Portland. So I decided that this misconstrued rumor was so absurd that I needed to track it back to see if I could find its source. I never could, but it does remain the most preposterous scuttlebutt about me I've ever heard. Here's the point. Mention anything even slightly negative to your downline, and you'll likely wind up on the wrong end of a highly perverted untruth. From being slightly angered by an NFL star leaving my organization, to being so fed up with MLM that I had joined an NFL team in order to play professional football as a 36-year-old, 5'10", 155-pound guy, is a stretch. This illustration is sufficient all by itself to give you good reason to avoid sharing angry complaints with your downline. The rumors will come back to haunt you, and, at the very least, the fact that their upline is depressed will cause your downline to question the business. A case for optimism. The underlying embarrassment some professionals feel after joining network marketing and the negative reactions of their peers are two causes of depression, though they aren't easily admitted. We need to especially prepare former physicians, lawyers, accountants, and other professionals for the internal conflict they nearly always experience during their transition to MLM. In their previous life, no matter how underpaid or overworked, they were seen as somebody important with a title and an office. Now they are starting over at the bottom rung of the ladder as lowly network marketers. To even consider taking on this challenge, such professionals often suffer the anguish of feeling that, in order to go forward with this new business undertaking, they must sacrifice their very identity. In order for professionals to be successful in network marketing, they must be willing to use their reputations and credibility toward building their business. By hiding behind the pretense that it's their spouse's business, or that it is just an insignificant little side business, they will set themselves up for failure by subtly denying their commitment to their warm market. It is the responsibility of serious players in network marketing to provide such professionals with a real vision of why MLM is a remarkable industry, and how many people they will help avoid the rat race, and perhaps even stress-induced coronaries. Without an optimistic outlook, people are doomed to failure in this business. One of the greatest books Mark ever encountered as a minister was entitled A Case for Optimism by James Dillett Freeman. Mr. Freeman is a poet, minister, and scholar from Lee's Summit, Missouri, who devoted a significant part of his adult life to a prayer ministry called Silent Unity. As a part of the worldwide unity movement, Silent Unity receives thousands of prayer requests each day by telephone and mail, and has a vigil of quiet prayers 24 hours a day for those who request them. Who better than a man devoted to prayer and meditation to write a book on optimism about our often pessimistic species? Read any chapter and you will feel just a little bit better about yourself, your life, and your world. We've come to realize that in network marketing, we have literally the greatest case for optimism in the history of free enterprise. We want to share a few of the reasons for stating this and encourage you to mark this place in the book. When one of our reasons for optimism is particularly relevant to you, underline it, then come back to it when it's necessary to lift your spirits. First, we have the only entrepreneurial home business with literally no downside risk. You see, most businesses require significant capital before you can even hang up a sign. Not network marketing. So we are, first of all, extremely pleased with the fact that anyone can get involved with us for the nominal price of a few products and sales aids, and even that is optional. Thus, in the competitive world of home businesses and franchises, we have no equals. Second, there is literally no ceiling, no limits on earnings. A lawyer can only bill so many hours in a day, and a doctor can only perform a handful of surgeries a day. Some great people working in traditional business haven't had a raise in 10 years. But in our case, we can create a raise for our family every day if we choose. Since we can recruit an unlimited number of people who each can do the same, we are ultimately paid on the efforts of hundreds of thousands of individuals. We can't speak for you or any other, but we can tell you this. We absolutely love the fact that it's possible to earn $1 million a month. There's just something appealing about life when you first catch the vision that, if you apply yourself, your grandchildren will be considered old money in your town. Third, and most exhilarating of all, in network marketing, time freedom is directly commensurate with wealth and prosperity. In our opinion, nothing in life equals the joy of spending quality time doing the things we most enjoy with the people we most love. In traditional professions, small businesses, sales, or corporate management, everyone is struggling through 80-hour weeks doing mundane, boring work in order to have, maybe, a Sunday afternoon with their family. Nothing is more precious than free time, and those of us who have achieved it are optimistic about an industry that offers this precious commodity to others, thereby improving the possibility of family values throughout the world. Fourth, there need not be any stress at all in MLM. According to a late 80s cover story in Georgia Trends magazine, the #1 trend in America is stress-induced coronary. And as the article suggests, it's no longer just a risk for men. Death from coronary disease has increased 100% among women since 1980. In network marketing, if you aren't having fun, you aren't doing it right. We've had a blast the last few years in spite of the fact that our business required large-scale recruiting and a lot of good old-fashioned rejection. So, like us, if you pay the price in the first few years, stress need no longer exist in your life. That brings us to our fifth reason for optimism, the 4-year plan. The 40-year plan is the best that folks can hope for in traditional businesses. So what's the 40-year plan, you ask? By age 25, most people have an idea of what profession they'll enter, anything from a fishing guide to a surgeon. But 40 years later, out of a typical 100 people, 5 are still working, 36 are dead, 54 are dead broke, or at least earning far less than when they were employed. 4 are well off, and 1 person is wealthy. Thus, the 40-year plan means that for 4 decades, most of us go back and forth from home to work, back and forth, like a silly, sick, caged lion. And yet, at the end of that time, only 1 out of 100 persons has something to show for it. In stark contrast is the 4-year plan. Work diligently for one MLM company for 4 years, build an income based on the honest movement of products or services, and you're set for life. Even more exciting, so are your heirs. Every person's MLM business is fully inheritable. If trading the 40-year plan for the 4-year plan doesn't get your heart pumping, You may need to be checked for Alzheimer's. It is said that recognition is our most sought-after reward in life. Babies cry for it, and grown men die for it. We are convinced that this adage is right, and no other business can hope to provide all the recognition we receive as leaders in the networking industry. The only times either of us have broken down and cried publicly in front of large audiences have been on 2 occasions when we were presented with recognition plaques from our downline. Such recognition awaits all those who become reasonably successful in network distribution. Nothing in life so pleases us as when other human beings, with tears of sincerity and joy, thank us for giving them the opportunity to make their lives work. Finally, the joys of travel and stimulating cultural experiences await everyone in this business. Work hard, succeed, and then fasten your seatbelt and be prepared to see the world and enjoy new adventures while cultivating international friendships. There is nothing we human beings detest more than boring routine work. In MLM, we have a ball traveling, learning about new cultures, visiting major museums, and sampling new and unique meals from entirely different worlds. Network marketing is an incredibly diverse and lucrative profession. So, as you can see, there are many reasons for optimism in network marketing, and we highly encourage you to periodically review this chapter and, in particular, these ideas, should the depression torpedo catch you unaware. To become involved in network distribution is to become one of the luckiest people in the world. Controlling our attitudes. Our attitudes are among the few possessions that are totally ours and can never be taken from us. Houses and cars come and go, but our values and attitudes are with us forever. It is only when we continually exercise control over our own attitudes that we can manage external circumstances. Real change comes first from the inside, and our behavior naturally follows. Without this personal realization, people often become depressed in their first year of networking. There's a natural tendency to feel personally rejected when a relative or close friend decides not to participate in your business, or to take it as a personal insult when someone whom you've spent hours supporting and training decides to quit the business for no obvious reason. More than likely, those events will occur, but it is up to you to determine how you react to them. No one can successfully perform the tasks necessary to succeed when he is depressed, especially in a business in which success results more often from attitude than ability. Many people fail simply because of their attitudes. And as we pointed out earlier, it is virtually impossible to convince people to change careers if you don't show them your enthusiasm and joy. We can't expect others to join us in business if it is obvious to them that we are less than satisfied. Always remember, enthusiasm is contagious. In our own recruiting, we freely express excitement and effervescence as key tools in convincing others to join our business. Our prospects can tell how excited we are, while many of them know their lives are boring and routine. We make certain at some point in our presentation to say, "In our business, if you aren't having fun, you're doing it wrong." Now for the practical advice. No more news. Never before in our long history as civilized beings have we had so many means of completely controlling our attitudes until now. We are convinced that the old adage, originally aimed at computers, can also be applied to people. Garbage in, garbage out. Because of our backgrounds in theology, both of us have participated in extensive counseling. Often we found that depression was the result of the garbage people allowed into their brains. One man who showed up for marital counseling explained how he'd lost the fire in his relationship. In fact, his whole life was becoming increasingly more depressing. As is so often the case, as Mark recalls the incident, a brief evaluation of this man's daily activities told the tale. Philip was a 40-year-old computer analyst for a major technology firm who explained his day as nothing out of the ordinary. I get up each morning and sit at the breakfast table reading the newspaper. Because I'm in a carpool, I either pick up my two friends or they me for the 45-minute commute. I stopped him with a leading question. Once you're in the car, what do you talk about? I wondered for an important reason. Oh, the usual small talk, he replied. But we really only spend a few minutes talking. Then we flip on the radio because one news station gives traffic reports every 10 minutes, which helps us strategize our commute. If there's a serious traffic problem ahead, we avoid it. And besides, during that time, those who aren't driving normally have business files to examine. It was just as I expected. Philip then proceeded to detail his mundane day. He and his co-workers had permission to listen to the radio at work. That breaks some of the monotony, Philip explained. When he got home from work, he first read the paper while sipping a glass of wine. He had dinner with his two kids and wife, during which they all discussed their days. He spent less than 2 hours with any paperwork he brought home. Then he and his wife curled up in bed in time to see an A&E program entitled Law and Order, followed by the 10 o'clock news. He again emphasized that he led a reasonably good life, but nothing extraordinary. At the end of 45 minutes of reflective listening, I recommended that Philip go 6 months without reading one newspaper, watching one television show about crime or newscasts of any kind, and no radio news at all. 6 months without news. Following 2 more counseling sessions in which routine marriage counseling techniques were employed, Philip and Nancy never returned. We bumped into them 2 years later at a conference, and they both beamed. Their marriage had taken a positive turn, and Philip thanked me profusely. He made a point of mentioning that he really didn't know for certain what changed, but something had surely improved his life. By the way, he said as he turned to walk away, except for the weekend edition of USA Today, I don't mess with the news anymore. Not that that has helped a great deal. Wrong, Phil. The entire marriage turnaround could probably be traced right back to the elimination of those meaningless newscasts. If you are troubled by depression, read this next sentence 3 times. No more news. If Martians land anywhere in the world, you'll hear about it within 15 minutes from someone in your circle of friends. If a princess dies, you'll hear about it even if you're on a boat in the Caribbean. We did. Of all the absurdities in modern life, nothing creates as much depression and misery as news. We are bombarded each day of our lives with radio, television, computer, and print news. To truly understand the effect it has on us, consider the philosophy of the news media. Remember that they are in business to make money, and that to be profitable, they must be interesting. And consider the often quoted philosophy in the news industry. Good news is no news. They know that the American public lusts for the extraordinary. A murder is more fascinating than a man who donates $150,000 to charity. Donald Trump divorces Marla Maples, so naturally the tabloids cover every angle of the story. But last year, Trump gave $2 million to programs for New York's homeless, but we would have never known, had a mutual friend not told us. We subscribed to The New Yorker because of the great stories, but no mention was made of Trump's altruism. Why? Because the public isn't interested in and will not buy good news. So what does that have to do with us? Plenty. When we sign up new frontline distributors, we give them one specific assignment prior to their one-on-one personal training, to which they are invited following the completion of these assignments. We'll cover them in depth in a later chapter, but suffice to say they are quite simple. 1. Define your goals. Visualize the end result. See yourself there, then commit your goals to writing. 2. Make a list of 2,000 warm market leads, people with whom you want to share the opportunity. Then prioritize your prime 25 family members and friends. 3. After personally using our products, find 10 customers who enjoy them as well. 4. For the sake of preserving your positive attitude, avoid any and all news for 6 months. except magazines which are 75% literature and 25% current event news. It's very easy to enforce the first three, but not the last. However, a cursory evaluation of your distributor's attitude will reveal a great deal. If he's bouncy and sincerely exuberant, he's probably not watching the news. Create a positive environment from the inside out. We are irrevocably convinced that putting positive information into our brains is essential to success. We do that by reading uplifting books and articles, listening to inspiring tapes, and practicing daily affirmative communication with ourselves and others. Read books that motivate you and share them with others. Uplifting materials need to be spread like wildfire. Here are just a couple of our recommendations. First, make note of the telephone number for the American Youth Foundation, 314-772-8626. They distribute two of the most important, yet seldom read books that we encourage each new distributor to order and read. Both books were written by the late, great William H. Danforth, founder and former CEO of the Ralston Purina Company in St. Louis, Missouri. He was a wealthy, rags-to-riches entrepreneur who had a genuine interest in the personal development of men, women, and children of all ages. Although today very few people have heard of him, Mr. Danforth was a champion of human potential who wrote books with this timeless message. Any person, regardless of age, color, sex, or inexperience, can rise to the same levels of success as the most renowned entrepreneurs. Mr. Danforth challenges all adolescents to become the world's greatest in whichever field they choose. It is absolutely impossible to be discouraged after reading either of his books, Action and I Dare You. And you don't need to read them from beginning to end. You can start reading any place in the material and skip around. While they are targeted at young people about to embark on adulthood, they are critical for adults about to launch new entrepreneurial careers. Similarly, the story of A.L. Williams is about a relatively impoverished high school coach who had a dream. His dream was to create an unlimited opportunity in which ordinary people could rise to extraordinary heights. He founded a network marketing life insurance company comprised of former teachers and coaches that became so successful that in just their 7th year, they sold more term life insurance than New York Life, Metropolitan, and Prudential combined. Yet those companies were, at the time, over a century old. How? Simple. Mr. Williams did it through boosting people's self-confidence. We recommend you read his books, Pushing Up People and All You Can Do. Both books are remarkable, but pay special attention to his chapter in All You Can Do about having a cause and being a crusader. During many days when we were convinced that the difficulties of network marketing would defeat us, the words of A.L. Williams touched us and wiped out our depression. There are hundreds of inspirational and motivational audio tapes available today. Put one into your cassette player at every possible opportunity, during drive time or when doing menial work at home, for instance, to continually absorb positive messages. These tapes will assist you in achieving your full potential, expanding your belief in yourself, and achieving your highest goals. 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day go through each of our minds. 95% of them are about the past, and frequently it is the past that holds us back. Dwelling on negative events from the past that cannot be changed will only limit our possibilities. Do you know what happens when you play a country western song backwards? You get your dog back, your pickup back, your girlfriend back, and you're right back where you started. In order to move forward, we must spend more time, 1, recalling positive emotional experiences from the past, or 2, focusing on the future. The moment you feel yourself spiraling downward, play some music from your past that conjures up happy days. You can't help but feel good. Think about past situations that turned out perfectly. Just those thoughts give you warm feelings. Then take those feelings and emotions and inject them into the present moment. When a husband walks into his house and sees the girl he courted, rather than the wife with whom he now lives a routine life, He will behave differently. His loving actions toward her will often cause similar reactions from her. This example is just one way to use the past to change our emotional responses to the present. The depression torpedo may be looming out there, but we don't have to be struck by it. We are 100% in control of our own mindsets. When working on personal development, putting more energy into thinking about the future is equally effective. This takes effort and determination because our natural tendency is to dwell in the past. Striving to visualize ourselves as we want to be is the first step toward change and growth. If we can't picture ourselves in a positive future, we may never get there. Too often, people limit their goals by what they know to be true at the moment, but breaking out of those boundaries allows what seemed impossible to become possible. Goal setting is simply the process of adapting to a new reality, beginning from the inside out. To gradually turn those dreams into reality, begin to visualize them long before they ever happen. Start saying to yourself, "It is possible," even though it isn't happening now. Think in the future tense and visualize goals as already accomplished. Allow yourself to feel as if your dreams were happening now. Successful people always concentrate on the end result, while others get stuck focusing on the process, the how. People with limited thinking ask why. Those with unlimited thinking ask why not. The skeptics among you may worry about setting unrealistic goals or an inability to make them happen. If you believe in the value of your goals, trust us, you'll find the resources to make them happen. Set big goals and then strive to meet them. Whatever you do, don't ever give up on your goals. Just change your attitudes. When the belief that we are locked into our present reality is stronger than our vision of what we really want, our growth becomes stifled. Think about what's coming in order to effect change. Use affirmations. An affirmation is a trigger tool, a statement of belief, written and repeated as if the goal were already an accomplished fact. Affirmations have the power to effect that outcome. Many prominent behavioral scientists have documented in several landmark studies the effectiveness of autogenics. We can now state to the most cynical, conservative pragmatists that self-talk, affirmations, visualization, and autogenic programming work. Prior to the release of Dr. Bandura's studies at Stanford and those of Dr. Charles Garfield at the Performance Sciences Institute at Berkeley, California, as well as the pioneering human potential research of Lou Tice at the Pacific Institute, we would lose some of our audience when we got into affirmations and autogenic commands. Now only those who have been living in a closet could doubt the effectiveness of visualization and daily affirmations. Today, we know that one of the best defenses against depression or any other form of mental anguish is the daily process of drafting and repeating positive statements about yourself. Write a few down on a slip of paper and keep them in your wallet or day timer, or on your bathroom mirror for daily recitation. Here are a few affirmations that seem to work for everyone, but we encourage you to write some of your own, related specifically to your wants and needs. Read them silently every morning when you wake up, and every night before the lights go out. After reading each one, visualize the written statement as if it is transpiring right now. Read the words, picture them happening, and feel the emotions that go with the vision. As the affirmations are gradually assimilated into your daily life, creativity, positive decision-making, and goal-setting become free-flowing events. I am powerful, knowing that I alone am accountable for the results of my decisions and actions. I enjoy every facet of life because I easily and enthusiastically create fun, joy, and adventure. I feel supported working with a team of positive people who share my values. People listen to me when I talk because I have something of value to say. I clearly communicate my business vision to others in such a way that they are inspired to join me and become a part of it. Because of my high self-esteem, I feel enormous satisfaction reaching my goals. I value myself as a person, and I know that I am worth at least $50,000 a month and more. I am proud to be building an MLM dynasty as I recruit dozens of excited people who rapidly duplicate my success. What you'll notice about this exercise is this. As you visualize the new, you gradually begin to shed the old, believing with every fiber of your being that what you visualize is happening to you at that very moment. That is when change begins to occur. Change is often 2 steps forward and 1 step back. When you do well, say to yourself, "That's like me." When you make a mistake, say, "That's not like me. I'll do better next time." We have used each of these affirmations repeatedly and have shared them with many other people who have seen dramatic results by repeating them regularly. Dr. Bob Sharp, a dentist from Big Rapids, Michigan, fell on tough times back in 1989. Divorce, dissolution of my professional corporation, the premature death of my partner in my new dental practice, an office building project gone sour, and finally, my wife's 6-month battle with cancer had left me over $1 million in debt. By January of 1996, the IRS was threatening to seize what assets I had, until $90,000 in back taxes were paid in full. The moment the IRS actually withheld payment from my major insurance vendor, the situation finally looked hopelessly bleak to me. I had recently attended a vision workshop with the president of my network marketing company and came away reading and repeating the following affirmations every morning and every night. I am sitting on my deck overlooking my pond stocked with bass, pike, and bluegill. My wife, Susan, and I are free to travel wherever and whenever we wish. People seek my advice because of my talent and religious conviction. I have the time and money to help my children as they begin their careers, etc. Almost immediately, things started to change. My builder loaned me $200,000 to pay all my past due debts, including the one to the IRS. My dental practice began to prosper. My network marketing business, which had been stagnant, began to grow. I regained my personal confidence and self-esteem. Within 5 months, all short-term debt was current, and all long-term debt was being paid on schedule. Most exciting of all, in October, Susan and I bought and moved into our dream home. It is a 51-acre farm, complete with a fishing pond and a swimming pool, a lighted tennis court, a barn for our horses, a 10-acre hayfield, driving range, and a guest house that we rent out. We have deer, geese, ducks, turkeys, and thousands of birds as our guests. My relationship with my company and the industry is much more than just making some extra money part-time. It is about personal development and the freedom to lead a life of choice. It is about being content with what you do every day and helping other people lead the lives of their dreams. More and more scientists, including respected quantum physicists, have come to the realization that we cannot produce magic results by thinking away the laws of physics. However, we can dramatically impact our subconscious, which directly influences our daily productivity. Perhaps you'll recall that in 1969, the Federal Communications Commission became very concerned that consumers could be unconsciously manipulated by subliminal advertising. It was eventually made illegal because it is so very effective. That same kind of manipulation can also be utilized for positive productivity. Try using affirmations for a month, and you'll use them for the rest of your life. When you use affirmations, you will be defending yourself against the depression torpedo, and no bad news or disappointments will be able to penetrate your shield. Create a positive environment from the outside in. Our final piece of advice to avoid depression, and this need not be a tough one, is that new distributors should avoid dream stealers and negative people at least through their first year in network marketing. Often the negative people are family members or even close friends. Because success in MLM results more often from attitude than ability, it is important that we spend time associating with people who support us in our desire for success. Set clear rules for those who are constantly talking negatively about our business or criticizing our dreams. Sit down with those negative people one at a time and have a serious, authentic discussion. Let them know that regardless of their opinion of this industry, you need and expect positive, uplifting comments or no comments at all. Tell them the truth. If they persist in involving you in counterproductive, negative discussions, you've got a decision to make. Either you deserve a life of financial security and time freedom with your family, or you deserve to live a mediocre life amidst negative people. It's up to you. But in most cases, if you ask people nicely to support you, they will do so if they truly love you. Dr. Robert Neff of Dallas, Texas, had received a lot of negativity from those for whom he held tremendous respect in the first year of building his networking business. Their greatest argument was that the industry was fundamentally flawed, taking advantage of others for your own personal gain. He knew that this wasn't his experience, but their words stayed in his head and held him back from building his business. Why? Because these words depressed him. Although he had been raised as an atheist, Dr. Neff was growing in his understanding of spiritual values, as he was coming to grips with his place in the industry and his emerging religious faith. He had an astounding realization one morning. Network marketing was modeled after Christianity. He frantically wrote down the parallels that he saw, and as he did so, the doubts he was harboring about this industry left him. He knew at that moment that network marketing was an inherently good industry that revolved around helping others help themselves. It was the act of writing this down that was so beneficial to Dr. Neff. We love his analysis, and couldn't have expressed these parallels more eloquently, even though we were both trained as professional theologians. Reading these similarities between network marketing and Christianity, it's easy to understand how they helped to alleviate Dr. Neff's depression. Here's what he wrote. 1. It is very unlikely you'll learn about it unless someone else invites you to see it. 2. You are shown something that initially sounds too good to be true. 3. You are given support for its validity, but mostly through personal stories, and hence your belief is based mostly on faith. 4. You are told that you must first believe before you can experience the incredible benefits. 5. You can measure your belief by the amount of good that goes on around you. 6. You are given a manual to guide you. 7. While you may not understand it at first, you are asked to be teachable and follow those who have already experienced what still lies ahead for you. 8. Along the way you will encounter difficulties and you will need to ask for assistance. 9. When up, you're asked to help others beneath you, and when down, you're able to get help from above. 10. That assistance will be given in a form that will make you stronger and more self-sufficient. 11. You will not be perfect along the way, but as long as you believe, you will reach your destination. 12. You are asked to delay gratification by putting your own needs aside for the time being so you can help others first. 13. Providing this help will require dedication, persistence, and hard work. 14. Do not fear people, but instead offer a hand to them even though many will say they do not need your help. 15. By surrounding yourself with other good people who also carry the same beliefs and commitments, you are protected from negatives that can hurt you. 16. You are invited to come together on a regular basis to renew your vision. 17. As a result, you will learn more about yourself, about others, and about life. 18. In the end, you will have directly or indirectly helped thousands of people to live better lives and move on to a better place. Network marketing is the great equalizer because it is built on attitude. Charles Swindoll, a minister and best-selling author, wrote, "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. Programs that support personal growth through attitudinal changes are on the rise. The EDGE curriculum, Increasing Human Effectiveness, and the Pacific Institute's Investment in Excellence are two such programs. Many of the concepts in this section can be indirectly credited to Lou Tice, who led us to Dr. Albert Bandura, 45 years a psychologist and arguably the most quoted expert in cognitive strategies for self-mastery and peak performance. It was from Dr. Bandura that we learned the most important new developments in self-efficacy and human potential, which today form the basis of our own personal development curriculum. Just believe and keep going. It seems obvious, but we'll say it anyway. The secret of survival is simply to not give up. The way to avoid despondency is to keep the faith. Of course, they're both true. Life's challenges are essential to our growth. Without them, we would fall into a comfort zone, bringing our creativity to a screeching halt. Darrell Moore of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, found this to be the case back in December of 1994, when he and his wife Mabel faced what he described as the darkest month in their network marketing business. In August, we filed our letter of intent, LOI, putting the company on notice that we were planning to pursue an executive status. In September and October, we met our qualification goals, but in November we had to take a grace month. We already had one frontline distributor who had completed his executive qualification the previous September, so we saw December as our do-or-die month in the business. If we didn't make it, we would not only have to start all over again, but we would lose our only executive who would roll past us. We were both worn down to a nub. All we had ever heard was that December was the worst month of the year because you could not get people to do anything but think about the coming holidays. Mabel spoke to me in a tone of voice that implied we had reached the end of the line. I felt like a doctor in an emergency room who had finally emerged from tending a loved one and said, "We've done all we can do." There was my wife, looking forlornly at me, asking, "So what else can we do now?" The only answer I could come up with was to keep doing what we had been doing and not give up. I believed that hard work, coupled with faith in what we were doing, would carry us through this moment of crisis. The very next week, on December 10th, we gained a new frontline distributor, Bryant Miller, of all things by losing a coin toss in Jackson, Mississippi. Sharing a co-op advertisement with one of our frontline distributors, June Lyle, we flipped a coin to see who would get the first sign-up. June won and sponsored a businessman with a resume a mile long. We got the next prospect, Bryant, though more than a week passed before he signed up under Mabel and me. He was extremely well connected, highly motivated, and submitted his LOI that following week. That helped us reach our executive qualification volume for December and saved our business. Today, both Bryant Miller and we are still in the business, although the businessman who signed under June is not, moving steadily toward our goals. Faith is the only thing that got us through those trials and kept us going when there appeared to be no end in sight. We had faith in our company, faith in our products, and faith in ourselves. Most of all, we had faith that if we were doing our part and operating from the heart, God would show us the way. He did, and brought them out of depression into the Promised Land. John Seeney from Annandale, Virginia, had an extremely short stint in corporate America that ended at age 23. After 2 years of college, 2 years in the Army, and 2 more years as a computer geek, I discovered I'd never make a fortune working for somebody else. In the last JOB, Journey of the Broke, I'll ever have, I was running the computers for a car dealership, putting in 70 to 80-hour weeks for $2,000 a month. I'm no genius, but it didn't take me long to figure out I was worth a lot more than $6 an hour. John wanted his own franchise, but had no capital. He called every ad in several papers, and after looking at many networking companies, found the right company for him. What was the biggest appeal? The successful people who were making millions in the business were mentors I wanted to emulate, and they were willing to teach me everything they knew. Here was a group of people with integrity and a company with products that were going to grab significant market share. But the problem was that during that first year, I was terrified to talk to anyone about the business. I was shy, lacking confidence in myself, hoping but not knowing if this business would work, and feeling extremely inadequate about being so young, inexperienced, and without money. But my sponsor, Barbara Groff-Feldman, believed in me, called me every morning to encourage me to get on the phone and start sharing with others the incredible information I had. Somehow I managed to contact about 100 people in my first few months. Most laughed at me. I actually only sponsored one of those 100, and she quit a week later. After 6 months, I had only made about $1,500 total. But an interesting evolution had taken place right in front of me. I had observed Barbara's sponsor go from $4,000 a month when I met her to over $20,000 a month in that same 6-month time span. She was a 26-year-old single mother, Lisa Fairbanks, with a journalism degree and a great attitude, who in 22 months went from startup to over $60,000 a month. That made her a legend in our company, and I was fortunate enough to witness everything she did firsthand to make that money. You know what I learned? She didn't do anything I couldn't do. She just worked really hard and had complete confidence in the company, the products, and her ability to make millions. So even though I was very ineffective and had almost zero income, my belief level began to explode. That's when my business changed forever, when I believed I could duplicate the success of my mentors. In the next year, my income went from a little over $1,100 per month to almost $10,000 a month. And today, nobody believes the story of how I began, shy and broke and ready to quit. But it doesn't matter. Just remember 3 magic words. Keep watching winners. Today, we've helped so many people quit their jobs and go through the same tremendous personal growth. It would have been so easy to quit network marketing, walk away, and say, "Those deals don't work." But I have an attitude in my head that I love. When everybody else gives up, that's when I really go to work. And I had great role models to help me maintain my positive focus. Looking back, the sacrifices I made in the beginning were tiny compared to the return on my investment. Besides, how else can someone start a business that's profitable in a year or two with little or no debt, and then consistently make a 6-figure income working from home? At age 20, I spent about $1,000 getting a real estate license that I never used. So risking $1,000 on my company was hardly a gamble. I look back at where I'd be if I could have found the capital to purchase that pizza franchise 7 years ago. I might just now be finishing paying off my loan, having lived at the store 24 hours a day, and I'd weigh 350 pounds from eating pepperoni pizza all day, with no time for exercise. Instead, I travel the world, have peace of mind and zero headaches, and I can be a professional dad for the rest of my life. At a young age, John has made it to the top of his company, all because he found an abundance of belief instead of the abundance of investment funds that he thought he needed to make his life work. Negative beliefs about ourselves are the only barriers to our success. There's an important lesson to be learned from John. Instead of yielding to depression, simply observe other successful people and recognize that if they can do it, so can you. Keep watching winners and believe in yourself. Whatever you do, just don't quit. John and Patricia Dwyer from New York City began their networking business in August of 1991. Having just signed up, they came home and turned on the television to watch 2020. Barbara Walters was interviewing an attorney general by the name of Frank Kelly, who vowed to put the very company in which they had just sponsored out of business, claiming it was an illegal pyramid. Absurd as it may sound, what kept them going was the fact that many friends called to make sure they knew about the program airing. What they experienced was similar to the classic joke about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. But other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Fortunately, what stuck with many of their friends was not the attack on the Dwyers' company, but rather Barbara's closing comments. "But I hear the products are good." Patricia continues the story. "With all the publicity, this was not the most enjoyable time to build a business. We could have said, 'Yes, they are right. This is too hard. Nobody wants to join our business.' And believe me, they didn't join. As far as they were concerned, it was a pyramid. We felt we might as well quit. No one would blame us. But that would have been a terrible mistake. We would have missed all the great friends that we've enjoyed meeting over the 6 years of building our international business. One of our turning points was attending the network marketing certification course offered by the University of Illinois at Chicago. It is the first ever of its kind, taught by the Yarnells and Dr. Charles King. We met marketers from so many different MLM companies, making friends with them, and coming away knowing with certainty that this industry was going to be the business of the future. Today, Patricia and John have an international business with over 8,000 distributors worldwide. Network marketing has enabled them to get out of their former restaurant business and enjoy the rewards of working together. It has given them unlimited free time as well as financial freedom. They travel the world and support their associates along the way. They are especially grateful that, like so many others who bailed out at that time, they didn't listen to the media expose attacking their company. Rather, they used their own good judgment and, in spite of very rough beginnings, just refused to give up. Remember, depression can't win if you are constantly learning, bettering yourself, and associating with other positive people. Steve and Cynthia Rose of Colorado Springs, Colorado, had a similar experience. They first heard about this industry in 1987 when they were living in Austin, Texas. They were invited to meet Mark Yarnell, who they heard was very successful with an upstart MLM company. Because of busy schedules, they passed on the opportunity. After a series of failed businesses, 4 years later, in 1991, a young attorney and his wife from Albuquerque, New Mexico, again offered them the same opportunity. Hearing that Yarnell was still involved in the industry, and with their backs against the wall, they took a second look. Selling a sofa to gather the cash to buy their starter kit, they took off like a whirlwind, only to be thwarted by the same media attacks and regulatory scrutiny with which the Dwyers had to contend. Describing the catastrophe, Steve and Cynthia remembered, "We saw our downline of chiropractors, bankers, and business people flee like rats from a sinking ship. While we remained at the helm, our belief in the company and its products grew stronger as we watched the company open international markets, build a 10-story headquarters and warehouse, and introduce a new division through all of the turmoil. All this in the first year of our network marketing experience. After the unfair coverage by the national media, we could not speak the name of our company for several months without defending our company's position and ourselves. What we learned from our experience was invaluable. To be successful in MLM requires a willingness to make internal changes, because this is truly a business of transformations, inside and out. Above all else, we must never yield to depressing outer appearances once we know deep down that our key leaders have integrity, and our products or services are beneficial to all." Jordan Adler of Tempe, Arizona, joined his company in September of 1992 with $36,000 in credit card and IRS debt, a downward spiraling job, and one broken-down Jeep. "I chose to work through whatever challenges presented themselves. I knew that long-term residual income never came to quitters. Although I knew this, I had this habit of quitting. In fact, I'd quit 6 of the 11 other MLM companies in which I'd been involved. The other 5 went belly up before I had a chance to quit them. I now know that it's not how many times you get knocked down that matters. It's how many times you're willing to get back up that separates the winners from the losers in this business. Some people saw overnight success in me after I joined our company. What they didn't see was the 10 previous years of never sponsoring a single rep and failing over and over again. In early 1993, I sponsored a friend in Peabody, Massachusetts. After 2 $1,000 trips to Boston on borrowed money to work with his organization, we built up a group of about 30 representatives. My friend and his buddy had been promoted twice. We were excited. A few months later, I put another airline ticket and rental car on my credit card to do a meeting for them back east. I flew over 1,000 miles and drove through a nasty snowstorm to get to the meeting. I couldn't believe it. All the guests no-showed or canceled, and my friend and his buddy quit that night and were never seen again. All 30 of their downline quit as a reaction to them. I couldn't revive a single one. Half my group vaporized that cold winter, but the fire still burned in me, and I went back to Phoenix and continued to build. Today, my organization has tens of thousands of representatives and continues to grow each month. Failure can't handle persistence, but clearly, persistence always wins in the end. Jordan, a living example of persistence paying off, is now a senior director and top 100 money earner with his company. All of these stories share one thing in common. When people just like you met their darkest moments, all of which were in their earliest stages of this business, they didn't let the depression torpedo sink them. When they were hit by circumstances outside their control, they just didn't give up. Throughout the industry, it has been observed that, statistically speaking, an enormous percentage of people quit the business in their first year. Of more interest to us, however, is this revealing fact. As many as 95% of those people who remain in this industry for 10 years or longer reach the highest pay levels in their respective companies. Whatever you do, just don't quit. Summary. Network marketing requires an upbeat, enthusiastic person who will, in turn, attract others seeking their own well-being. Attrition is a basic fact in the network marketing industry. The disappointment about those who fail to show up at meetings, or worse, those who quit, can be alleviated by putting your energy into approaching a greater number of new prospects. Don't waste your energy supporting those who resist you. Just think, next, and move on. Work with people who show an interest and will keep your spirits up. If you feel like quitting, call Upline for support and encouragement. Share your enthusiasm, never your negativity, with your downline. In order for professionals to be successful in network marketing, they must be willing to use their reputations and credibility toward building their business. Denying their commitment to their warm markets will only set themselves up for failure. These are the reasons to be proud and optimistic about sharing our business with others. 1. We have the only entrepreneurial home business with no upside limits and no serious downside risks. 2. Total time freedom goes hand in hand with the wealth and prosperity we achieve. 3. By working diligently in the beginning, we can ultimately have a stress-free life. Better to trade in the traditional 40-year plan for a new 4-year plan. 4. Recognition and travel await all those who are successful in building a network organization. 5. In our industry, recognition is derived from things in life that truly matter, such as helping people make their lives work. 6. Global travel often involves bonding with new friends and sharing exciting cultural experiences with them, adventures beyond the grasp of those caught in the 40-year plan. If you attempt to recruit others while in a state of depression, your efforts will be futile. You alone have control over your attitude. If you exercise that control, adjusting your attitude from the inside, then your outward behavior will naturally follow. To change your attitude and eliminate depression, we encourage you to 1. Avoid watching or reading the news. 2. Read uplifting books. 3. Listen to inspiring tapes. 4. Only speak and think to yourself in a positive, uplifting manner. 5. Recall positive emotional experiences from the past. 6. Focus on the future, not on past disappointments that limit your possibilities. 7. Set goals and use affirmations to reach those goals on a regular basis. Striving to visualize ourselves as we want to be is the first step toward change and growth. 8. Avoid negative people, or at least negotiate with them to avoid acting negatively around you. Don't ever give up on your goals. An affirmation is a trigger tool, a positive statement of belief, written and repeated as if the goal were already an accomplished fact. As you visualize the new, believing ardently that what you visualize is happening to you at that very moment, you gradually begin to shed the old. It is then that change begins to occur. As many as 95% of those who remain in this industry for 10 years or longer, working steadily at building their groups, reach the highest pay level in their respective companies. So just don't quit.